Hey Lydia,
Hi,
how's it going?
it's going good. How are you?
Good, good, good. I don't think you and I have met before, right?
I don't think we have met in person,
No.
no, but I know and adore your team.
Thank you so much. They're amazing. Lydia, I'm super excited. We're super excited to have you here. You're the senior SEO manager at sanity.io. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the senior SEO manager at Sanity.io. I've been in SEO for almost a decade. I think it's been about 8 to 9 years at the moment, which is quite a journey. Um, and I actually have a background in psychology. That's where I come from, and I have a master's degree in digital business. I've been working in agency side. I've been working in media, which I love. I'm obsessed with working in SaaS, and I'm really into SEO strategy. So not just like following around all the crazy changes in algorithms and all that jazz, but making a business impact.
Very cool. So your presentation is about data, which is critically important for SEO. We don't have that much time, so why don't we dive right into it, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A and summarize your presentation at the end. Let's dive right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so that's my presentation. We know that. We've already done it. Let's talk about why I chose to go with a gap analysis. Because if you listen to the word gap analysis, it puts you to sleep. To sleep. It sounds super boring. So I do find it that when you take a step back and analyze what your competitors are doing, you have a way better chance to actually make sense of your strategy and create tactics and strategies that are actually going to make you rank. Because we are not ranking in a vacuum. Um, SEO is a zero sum game, which means that every position that you gain, someone is losing. So you're not ranking alone. It doesn't depend on what you do only. It depends on what your competitors are doing and what your search environment is doing with you. So I do find that a gap analysis, as boring as it sounds, can be made fun. And we're not going to take it just as a concept. I'm going to be using some examples of when I joined my job at Sanity, the gap analysis that I did in June. So the way that I structure my gap analysis is around the three pillars of SEO. As you all know, we've got technical SEO, we've got content, and we've got links. I like to think about technical SEO as what enables search engines to find and understand your content and what enables users to enjoy it. And then we've got links that tell Google, yeah, this content makes sense. I believe in this content. I vouch for this content. So it all comes down to the content, which is what is going to satisfy user intent, which is why we say that content is king. When we're looking at your performance and your competitors' performance across the board, based on those three pillars, you need to understand that if you're already the best at technical SEO, pushing for more technical SEO changes and improvements might not be the thing that moves the needle for you. You might be needing links, you might be needing content. To understand it, you need the gap analysis. So, the very first thing we're going to have to do is answer three questions. Who are our competitors? What are they doing? And how are we going to do it better than them? So, for the first question, we're going to have to talk about competitor identification. There's a couple of methods for it, but what do I mean when I talk about search competitors? For me, a search competitor is someone that's targeting the same audience as you, that's ranking for the same keywords as you, or targeting the same keywords as you. And it is someone that would make your product obsolete. Because there's, rather than obsolete, a better way to say it is that if your target audience chooses their product, they no longer need your product. There's several different examples, but if if I was thinking of buying some toys for my cat and I'm looking around at cat toys, someone selling a cat fountain would not be your competitor. I can buy from both. And if I'm looking for solutions to a better night's sleep, maybe I could buy a pillow and also a scented candle that makes me that's lavender scented and makes me sleep better. So you would not be like battling this other person. It's not quite a direct competitor. So you essentially we're overlapping two aspects of business, a commercial competitor and a service competitor. So the way that I want to do this is with two approaches, the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. I'm going to explain both approaches and who they're best for. So the top-down approach is very fast and it's best for websites that are already somewhat established. This approach also helps you build better relationships in your business. So the way that I do the top-down approach is super easy. You just speak to your teams, speak to the sales team, the support team, the marketing team, speak to product, ask them who your competitors are, and compile a list of what everyone said. Prioritize it by the most repeated competitors, and then simply put your domain on a competitive research tool. So this could be SEMrush, Ahrefs, SE ranking, obviously. You could be looking at Systrix, and run down the list to see where the matches are, where the competitors your team thinks are your competitors, and where the tool says those are your competitors. So that would be the sweet spot between product competitors and search competitors. What this also does is it helps you create these relationships within the team and it improves buy-in for your competitor list and therefore for your gap analysis, because everybody feels like they've participated, that they've got a stake in the game. Then we've got the bottom-up framework, and the bottom-up framework is more precise. Um, I don't think it helps you build as many relationships internally, so it's a little bit harder to get that way ahead with buy-in. And it's best for starting sites. So for a while, I was consulting very briefly for a banking website, a website for a banking brand that was starting out in the UK. And the bottom-up framework was the best approach for them because they had no presence. So it made no sense. None of the tools were going to pick them up on the top-down framework. It also helps you, it helps you in many ways. Let me just get started with the methodology and we can cover it. So you have to identify your target keywords. What are my target keywords? Maybe it's a business bank account. Maybe it's just like cat toys, right? Just a list of your core keywords. And then I download the top 10 results from the SERPs for those keywords. Once I have this big download, if I'm looking at 10 keywords, it would be 100 lines download. If I'm looking at 20, it's gonna be 200. I analyze what are the most repeated domains within that data set. Then I measure what percentage of the total SERPs that compete with me these domains are dominating. And that way I have a very good idea of who my competitors are. Now, sometimes my competitors are not going to be the same for all of my products or across all of my topics. So what I do recommend, if you want to make the most out of this framework, is to cluster your keywords by topic and then analyze your competition by topic. Competitor analysis is super interesting, and I really, really think this framework is very useful. So I have created a small template for all of you to dive into. So you can reach it on bit.ly/SEO competitors, and we can link it here in the comments. So now that we've got your competitors, we can get into SEO benchmarking. So that's like the meat of what we are talking about. We're going to use data to reverse engineer our competitors' SEO strategy. As I said, we're going to be using those three pillars, and we're going to be starting with content. So some of the content metrics that I look at are the number of keywords ranking in the top 30. Then I download all the editorial URLs, or I count all the editorial URLs, and I kind of get what percentage of traffic, like the estimated traffic for each editorial URL. I look at estimated traffic by type. This is especially relevant if you're working in SaaS. So you've got branded versus unbranded traffic, traffic that's going to editorial, traffic that's going to product. You can tailor this to whatever's more relevant to your business, because you could also be discussing content frequency. You could be talking about fluctuations in the top 10. There's many ways to measure this. This is what works for me. And this is what I did when I joined Sanity. So I prepared a bit of a content benchmark, and I look at how much estimated traffic we had, how much of that was editorial, how much of that was branded, and how much of that was product. I realized that we had about 256 editorial URLs. So that's URLs that are created for like editorial content that could be blogs, guides, resources, white papers. And I divided the estimated editorial traffic across our editorial URLs and figured out that actually we had pretty good editorial efficiency, which means most of our URLs are getting more traffic than our competitors. But if you look at the number of editorial URLs, we are somewhat below. This is very obvious. This slide screaming to me that we needed to create more content. And this is something that I've made a big focus in my strategy at Sanity. Now then we've got brand metrics, and this section is super interesting because I've seen people adapt this methodology in many different ways, and people come with brilliant ways. People come up with brilliant ways of measuring brand and their relationship to SEO. The plainest one, the easiest one, is talking about referring domains and backlinks. We can look at domain authority. We could look at the search volume of the branded queries, which I think is super interesting. We can create a bit of a link gap to understand how far away we are from our competitors in terms of domains and backlinks. And we can analyze what their link growth has been in the last 3, 6, 12 months to understand whether or not they are investing in link building, which makes a very good case to go to your C-level management and say, aspirational competitor X is investing in link building, therefore we should. Baiting, oh, that sounds really bad, but baiting the C-level management into competition by taking a look at their aspirational competitors is typically quite an effective way of getting buy-in for your strategy. So when I did this for Sanity, I can clearly see that we are below average in terms of brand if we are comparing ourselves against our competitors. Luckily, this graph looks very different now. But initially, we were looking like we had less branded traffic than the average in the market. We had less backlinks, we had less sort of referring domains. We were kind of average in terms of DA, but that doesn't mean much. We had a pretty good brand search. So what is going on here? We have some pretty big brand search, but not a lot of branded traffic. Likely, by looking at this graph alone, you could argue that we don't have the branded content that users were looking for. This is something that we have fixed, and fortunately works a lot better now. And we can also see that our link growth is the biggest in the segment, in the search segment that we're analyzing. So we were acquiring links quite fast. Then what I like to do as part of the brand benchmark, and this is not it's not quantitative data, it's qualitative data, and you can analyze it in the same way. It's not as straightforward. Is looking at their H1 and their meta. And I kind of pulled it in with an import XML formula on Google Sheets, and I analyze what people are saying about their brands. So for example, when you look at Sanity, our H1 says content is data. And when you look at what our meta says, is Sanity is the unified content platform that lets your team work together in real time to build engaging digital experiences across channels. So what I read here, our meta says we're a unified content platform. It accentuates work, team collaboration, let your team work together, real time collaboration, building engaging digital experiences. So we're talking about digital experiences rather than websites or software across channels. This means omni-channel, collaborative, real time. Then I look at what our competitors are saying, and they define themselves mostly as headless CMSs, and they highlight that they're open source, that they enable content-rich experience, and they also somewhat accentuate that they are omni-channel. Most of them talk about this. For example, our competitor number two says publish content on any channel. Competitor number three just lists a bunch of channels. Um, it's really interesting to see how your competitors are talking about themselves and what are the value propositions that they are using. Because in SEO, if you're a little bit siloed within your business, you might struggle to understand how your brand's being viewed or product positioning. Personally, this really helps me, and it helps me also get a good grasp of what the key keywords are for my competitors too. Then when it comes to technical SEO, sadly, I hate saying this, but it depends. I have found different ways of measuring this, but essentially it's going to depend on your vertical and your industry. Because I am in SaaS, technical SEO is a little bit simpler for me than it would be if I was running a programmatic affiliate site or if I was running an e commerce, right? We've got different levels of technical complexity happening. But there's still some stuff that you can measure. You can look at core web vital scores, page speed insights, and do some manual checks across sitemaps, robots.txt, etc. So the best unifying way that I found to analyze whether or not a brand is investing in their technical SEO is looking at their web performance optimization efforts by taking a look at Core Web Vitals and page speed. Using the Chrome UX report that is available for anybody for free on Google Data Studio, I pull the percentage of good URLs in terms of LCP, FID, and CLS, and then I draw an average. And I use that average to compare Core Web Vitals across all of my competitors. And then for page speed, I look at mobile and I look at desktop and I bring it out right there. Because we are in SaaS, desktop is the most relevant score for me here. But if I was in a type of e-commerce that requires a lot of, that has a lot of consumption on the phone, I would place a lot more attention on my page speed on mobile. Um, then for the last step of our gap analysis, we're going to have to find what we are below average at, and that's where we're gonna get results. So we're not gonna. What have we seen for Sanity? We're seeing that in terms of content, we are average. In terms of brand, we are below average. And in terms of tech SEO, we're kind of on the average. So we need to be working on brand SEO. Then we need to devise a plan, right? We've identified what our weak pillar is. We know that we will need to work on it. So how are we going to do it? Because without execution, there's no ROI. You can look at spreadsheets all day long, and they can be as pretty and as conditional formatted as possible. But if you don't actually do things with that information, you're not going to be able to move the needle for your business. So we're going to make a growth plan, identify our weakest pillar, and we're going to be looking at the results. We know that brand is below average. Now, when I made this analysis, I had just arrived at this company. The likelihood of a CMO just letting me reign free and run around building links and creating digital PR campaigns was low, right? I think it makes sense to protect your brand, and not let the person that you've just hired go and run amok with your brand around the internet. So instead of proposing that we went with brand, I propose that we went with content, which is also what I am best at in the three pillars of SEO, in my opinion. So we're going to communicate where we're not performing. In case of brand, we can see that we are lacking referring domains, that we are lacking backlinks, but that we have a pretty decent brand recognition in comparison. So we will be needing branded content to match all of this branded search. And we're going to roadmap how we're going to improve it. In that case, what I did was, because I worked with content first, I created a content plan and identified what resources were going to be needed. So we needed some review time from our development team, we needed some review time from our content team, and sometimes we need review time from our product team. Also, we needed a writer, and we needed someone to put things live on our website. Um, a detailed plan of this got approval of everybody in the team, all the stakeholders. I managed to get ring fence resources for all of those approvals that we needed, and it was a go. And we were creating content for a while. Then, when it comes to brand, I managed to get some resources to start doing link building with the brand, but it's a project that we haven't started yet, so I can't speak to how successful it's been. So we're getting stakeholder buying. This is something that we've already covered. And as I mentioned, I I was new at Sanity. The smartest way for me to deliver value was to go with a pillar that required least buy-in. So I went with content. And then you execute and you make it happen. I know that this seems like a lot of data and a lot of information, but I am the unofficial self declared queen of templates. So I have created a template for you to make this yours. You can just click away, make a copy, edit it to your heart's content, and make sure that it is relevant for you and for your business because you know your business best. Now, if I've been talking about Sanity and you're curious to try it, we're offering a free boosted plan on Sanity for everybody who's watching here. So feel free to jump on. And thank you so, so much for watching my talk.
Cool. Thank you so much, Lydia. We only have we got a few minutes left for Q&A. Very interesting. Why don't we start with a question from Nina? Link building has become way harder than how it was 5 years ago. True. It is more about contextual links, which are difficult to garner. How to get contextual links without a paid method, Fiverr? Love to hear your answer.
All right. So, because I've worked in a predominantly digital PR agency before, I know different approaches. You could go out with a news checking approach where you find new ways to tie your brand. Sorry, I can't speak today. To tie your brand to the news, and reach out to journalists with that. But something that's become quite trendy in the link building industry at the moment is creating assets with linking intent. When you are creating content, you're writing around, you need a stat to validate X statement that you've made. If you create the type of content that's gonna get links from the people who are looking to reference and validate what they're saying, you are likely to get passive links without any type of outreach, if you manage to make that content rank, of course.
Cool. Excellent. Then let's see. Question from Anastasia. How often should I do an SEO gap analysis to make sure my content remains fresh and better than the competition?
It depends on your industry. I know that for my industry, I need to do it at least every 6 months, preferably every 3 months. There's industries that move a little slower, and you'd be cool just doing it yearly. But I think 6 months is a pretty good rule of thumb for everybody.
Okay, excellent. Let me hide that. Let's take a look here. All right. Valeria, does it make sense to do an SEO gap analysis of a website I'm only planning to create? Or does it only apply to live sites? Oh, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense, but with a different goal. So what we're trying to do here is we have an established website and we're trying to rank better than our competitors because we are not ranking as well as them. If you're building a new website, all of the SEO gap analysis work stops being a gap analysis and becomes competitor research. So if you look at that template and you remove your name from it, it's just competitor research from an SEO perspective. I think it's still very valuable and it lets you drive a strategy for the site that you're going to create. So instead of thinking, I need to have perfect core web vitals, maybe you see that you just need to have better core web vitals than your competitors. And all that time that you haven't invested in that type of web performance optimization can be invested in other areas such as content or links.
excellent. And then Lydia, you're getting very positive feedbacks, and we also have some people asking for more in-depth information, longer presentations. Head over to YouTube and just search for SE ranking. A lot of webinars that are at least an hour long. So if you want to hear more, head over to YouTube, SE ranking, a ton of great presentations there. Lydia, a question from Jack here. How can you increase content output as a freelancer?
So I'm understanding from this message that the person writing is a freelancer, either is a freelancer or is employing a freelancer.
I would say maybe
Increase,
both. Let's see if we can
yeah,
tackle.
right.
Yeah,
I think getting good briefs is absolutely key to getting content out fast. Um, Nothing slows you down more than having to redo the content because it wasn't what your stakeholder needed. So, stakeholder coordination and making sure that the content briefs that you're creating make sense. We can tend to skimp on that type of coordination and brief creation, but the higher the quality of the briefs, the bigger the results. I think that's the single thing that improves the results of your content best, investing in good briefs.
awesome. So Lydia, we have 2 more minutes. Why don't we take one more question here?
Yay!
Um, Ksenia, does the SEO gap analysis involve any contextual competitor content or multimedia as well? Minute and a half.
That is super cool. Such a good question. So at the very beginning of the presentation, I mentioned grab your competitors, download who's ranking for your SERPs, and then cluster it by keyword. Another thing that you can do, and I have some templates for this on my website, with that very same download information, you can analyze what are the SERP features on the SERPs for your queries, right? So you can see that maybe a specific topic is very heavy on video or very heavy on images, very heavy on maps. You can use that very same information to figure out where you are going to need to be creating video and images or podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that was cool. A lot of great questions. Again, more in-depth, longer content available on the SE Ranking YouTube channel. Lydia, thank you so much. We're off to our next speaker already.